everyone just go quiet just for a sec? Stu, can you say something?
Hello.
Kieran?
Hello.
Ash?
Hello.
Someone's not on. And I can't work out who it is. And I think it might be Stu.
Am I on, people?
Oh, it's me. I hit my switch.
Oh, Andrew.
Don't worry. I can see. Oh, that's why it's now really loud.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So why don't you start off, Andrew?
Is it loud and seductive?
Oh, God. I didn't
Don't
feel
have to
anything
do
there.
that.
I felt nothing.
It's Friday night, people.
Need a few of these first.
So here it is. It's the podcast nobody asked for. Three guys in a kitchen, drinking coffee and having a chat.
So we've got a guest today,
Okay.
and he's Kieran. He's my son,
Your boy.
my boy, and we've invited him today to come and talk to us about his couple of his trips in the last 12 months. One to Japan and one to Korea. Yeah. So I thought that might be quite interesting, because not a lot of people go to those places.
Japan's getting more and more popular.
No, I understand that.
Korea,
Yeah.
north or south?
Yeah, correct. And you should know that. So I thought we'd kick that off and do that. But before we do that, somebody suggested to me a few days ago that when they listen to the podcast, they don't know who's who.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do today
Yeah.
is I'd like you guys to introduce yourselves.
And speak in different accents.
And different accents.
Yeah.
But introduce yourself. Andy, would you introduce yourself so that we can hear your voice and know who you are?
You can hear my voice. This is the voice of Andy.
Okay.
Andy or Andrew?
I prefer Andy.
Okay, Andy.
Andrew.
I do prefer Andy. I don't. I have. There's a couple of people that I know, and then I've introduced myself as Andy, and they insist on calling me Andrew,
Do that.
and I don't like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Not for any like. I just feel like if you introduce yourself as Stuart,
Yes.
I would call you Stuart.
Yes.
Okay.
But if you introduce yourself as Stu,
Yes, one's not going to introduce himself as Stuart.
you don't say.
Right.
Okay.
We'll keep that one to annoy him sometimes.
Okay.
Stuart.
Yes. Hi. Yes. Hi, I'm Stuart.
Why are you leaning in as if?
I just thought I'd get more seductive tonight.
It's not working.
I thought it was, well, if I was, yes, let's move on.
Why are you leaning in like?
I don't know, Andrew. This tea's interesting, people.
Is it?
Japanese
Well,
tea.
maybe Kieran can describe what it is in a minute.
I think it's just normal.
So this is your host, Ash, and I'm going to pass you over to Kieran now. Kieran,
Wait.
say hello.
Stu, hold on. Stu's full in the face.
Why?
Oh, host as in it's your house.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
I
fine.
mean, I think he kind of technically hosts the podcast. I think he does. By default, it was never a design.
No,
I have a challenger.
No. I think he does host.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I think he does
Get the
host,
boxing gloves out.
but he facilitates very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
now-
what a good
okay.
host would do.
Can you shut up,
Oh, sorry.
Kieran?
Yeah, I'm Kieran. I'm the son of the host. And yeah, I probably sound a bit younger than everyone else, so that's how you can pick up on my voice a bit better.
Do you think?
See, but how you?
I don't know how old are you?
33.
Oh,
5 years between me and
not
him.
much, is it?
Yeah. So, Kieran, come and talk to us about Korea and Japan. What made you want to travel to those places? Because you've always had a thing about the Far East, did you?
Not really. I think if I'm honest, it was because we had points that we could use on our American Express, and it gave us the opportunity to fly somewhere far where we wouldn't have before. And so I thought Japan is a good gateway into Asia, just because they do say that it's one of the safest places that you can visit. They're probably more westernized than a lot of the places in Asia. So that's probably why we picked it. But then I think the reason for going to Korea was because I think as the years have gone on, a lot of Korean culture has kind of come into, Western life, whether that's
What? Give
through
me.
food.
Sorry, I'm not au fait with that. So give me an example.
Lots of Korean food now, but particularly in Birmingham, around Chinatown, you've got lots of Korean food. K-drama. A lot of K-drama is.
He's shaking his head.
I don't
like Korean drama. I tried it. I'm not.
Assume that he knows nothing.
Yeah, so
I do know nothing.
Talk to him as if you were a toddler.
yeah.
No, you don't need to be rude.
It wasn't me, was it?
Just, I'm intrigued
I
by.
understand.
No, of course you are.
Korean
And you are
food.
right to ask the questions.
Well, Netflix is full now of Korean shows. Some of the best films I've seen are Korean, and I watched them a long time ago. And there's a particular director called Park Chan-wook. I think his name is Park Chan-wook, and he did loads of. Have you seen Old Boy before?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Worth seeing?
Yeah.
Is it with subtitles?
Yeah.
Okay.
You probably dub it.
Do you object to subtitles?
No, because I watch a lot of Italian
And
programs.
Squid Game. Have you heard of Squid Game? No, I heard of Squid
You've
Game.
not heard of Squid Game?
I'm 56. Yeah?
I think that's
No,
not.
no. You've got Netflix. You got Netflix.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I, unless I can levitate towards it,
Yeah,
and I have somebody who recommends it,
Gravitate.
you
We've
don't-
done this before.
gravitate, levitate, whatever you want to call it. I have no connection to it. So when people say what you just said, that means nothing to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think there's a good one worth watching. I think it's on Apple TV called Pachinko.
Yeah.
Which is really good. But that kind of got me interested in Korea because it's about a family. It's
This is South Korea.
South Korea, yeah. So it's a family over 3 generations from being a poor family in South Korea to being forced to move to Japan during the Japanese Empire and their relationship with the Japanese. So that was really interesting. And then you learn a lot about it when you're over there as well. So the Koreans historically aren't very friendly with the Japanese. I mean, they still got disputed territory within the the sea between them. And the Japanese, unfortunately, were quite brutal when they had their empire, particularly in Korea and China. They did some really horrible stuff.
I think some of the stuff that the Japanese did was kind of worse than what the Nazis did.
Yeah, they
pretty grit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about comparing it. It'd be a bit difficult, but they did some pretty brutal stuff. They were quite happy to just massacre people, and it's just interesting trying to figure out the human psychology of that, like why they thought that, and also I think
everybody can be accused of that.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, it's probably right.
It's something that is unfortunately instilled in the human being,
and it's probably easy to go along with if everyone else is going along with it. But they had this idea that they were superior. So it was a similar kind of thing to the Nazis. They was a superior race, and they thought that ultimately all people in China and Korea were descended from the same place that they were, and ultimately they were theirs to subjugate as a result. But I think one of the guys who kind of oversaw the whole operation, I think he was the Emperor of Japan maybe at the time. I don't know fully, but he believed in this mythical tale about how their gods are related and stuff like this, and that was one of the motivators for trying to take over because he wanted.
Now, I have watched a program that relates to that.
Yeah. Okay.
That you'll probably have seen. Not sure if you would have.
Okay.
Called Monkey.
No.
But the Japanese gods.
Was it a drama?
So I think someone recommended that.
Supernatural. It was these guys.
No, it was a series.
It was a series,
okay.
and it was
drama.
Japanese. It was a bit of a cult. Funny, humorous kind of thing, but these characters were like, I think, if memory serves me right, were Japanese gods when the shoguns were around and all that type of stuff. And but yeah, that was quite interesting.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and we had one tour guide. We went to a city in the south of South Korea called Busan. Which during the 1950 to 53 war with North Korea was the only city in South Korea that wasn't taken by the North Koreans at one point. So at one point the North Koreans took the whole of Korea.
Never knew there was some issues with Japan and
and is
it Korea or South Korea?
South Korea. I mean,
was it Korea in total before they the war and the separation?
Yeah. So Japan would have had all of Korea, I think, at one point, because they made it into China, and they took parts of China as well. I think if I think
so. I mean, I've been to Japan, and I think that there is still. I've spoken to people when I was out there, and there still is quite the feeling of that they're quite. I'm not going to say racist, but they are still in that mentality of being the superior race in the Far East. Like, race, is that the right word? Race?
Yeah.
Nation?
Yeah.
I think they now,
ethnically, they are different. Like, the Koreans, the Chinese, and the Japanese are ethnically, you could say that they're probably ethnically different now.
Right.
Although they do have, like...
similarities.
Yeah. They will have been related to each other at some point. But the Japanese have all been quite insular. They had a period of time where they didn't let anyone into the country, mainly because they didn't want the West, the Westerns coming in.
Yeah.
They were sick of them by the time they came in. So but they eventually they opened up. I think they still probably have those opinions. Because even now, you can't, if you're not Japanese by birth, I don't think you can get you can't get citizenship. You can only get a long-term visa, but you have to renew that visa every 5 to 10 years or something like that. So you can't be Japanese unless you're sort of born there. Japanese.
So what's the kind of life like there for the Japanese in, because you kind of hear, I mean, obviously the food thing is a big thing, but also there's this idea that, they've got it sussed in terms of, things like cleanliness and respect and, schooling and all of those kind of things seem to be kind of, appreciated. And
I don't know whether that's because they are homogenous. They're all Japanese and not ethnically diverse. I don't know whether it's because they live all close together, so they've got this sort of like unwritten obligation to one another. But yeah, like everything, there's no public bins, but there's no litter anywhere, no chewing gum on the floor.
It is incredibly clean.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And is that everywhere, or I mean, are there places that can be a bit?
It can get a bit messy. They're big drinkers in Japan and South Korea, so
that's an interesting one.
So but the funny thing is, right? So the tube only runs till about midnight. So if you miss the tube, we'd have to get up early whether we were going. So we were catching our flight to South Korea quite early. I think we left about 5 a.m. People just sleeping on the road because it's perfectly safe to do so. Nothing's going to happen to them, but they're too pissed to get the train back at midnight. So they just have a little kick.
Yeah, the safety side of it for me. I mean, I remember when I was in Hiroshima for the anniversary of the atomic bomb. 2015, this occasion was somebody had left a mobile phone and some other items as well. And there was a table in the memorial park that had not the memorial park over there.
Sorry.
And there was a table and it had these items on it. And basically people had just found these items and they'd left them and they put them on the table and they're just there. And the phone was there for 24 hours.
Is there lost property sign on there?
No, it's just basically there was nobody around. It was just a trestle table with items, and one was just a mobile phone just sat there and
waiting for whoever
it was. And you don't lock your bike up when you go to the shops or whatever. You just literally pull up, you leave your bike on the side.
So what creates that though? What is it about them that has that kind of impact?
That's what I mean. It could be a number of things.
It's got to be culturally, hasn't it?
Yeah, there's got to be from what is it about their culture that
well, people used to say if you watch the film, the TV series Shogun on Disney, the one thing that they make contrast to is how much more sophisticated they were than the West was when the West came over. Yeah, they were surprised at how maybe they had nicknames for us being backward and stuff like that when the Portuguese first came over and the English. So maybe they just are more sophisticated. But then that's the other thing. I don't want to say this, but maybe it is because they're all Japanese as well. Maybe you are able to have a better working society if everyone's the same. It's a question to ask.
Because they don't have
there's not
alternative cultural.
Yeah, that's
they don't bring a baggage with them.
But I don't want to say that is, because one, I don't like to think that is, but also there is other aspects like if you see them in the morning when they're going to work, like it's just like
regimented.
It's well, yes, but it's regimented chaos because the tubes can't handle the amount of people that are getting on it, but they've all got to get to work at the same time, so they are like proper crammed in.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything's quite strange. No, they don't like strong smells, whether that's good or bad. So no one wears like aftershave.
Oh, I'd go for that.
Yeah, so you
I've
don't
just bought
really
a
get any bad.
expensive Ralph Lauren. So
Have you?
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't have to there, so that's
Well,
good.
I know I've bought loads of. I bought some at the airport because it was so cheap, but that's probably because they don't wear it.
So do they hum?
What, that make noise?
I'm being polite.
Stink? Do they stink?
No. It's so no strong smells. So they don't like bad smells, but they don't like.
Okay. So body odor is controlled.
Yeah. Everything's just neutral. It's just a neutral smell, which was a contrast to.
So what happens if you are wearing a very nice Prada?
Well, nothing will happen. I mean, they're polite.
They wouldn't stand away from you by 6 foot.
No, massively polite. They're not one to come and talk to you, but if you open up to them, they're lovely. Like we went to a coffee shop that was run by this old Japanese lady, and she was hilarious. So they will talk to you and they will open up to you, but yeah, and maybe they're just sick of tourists as well because the main Shibuya, which is the main bit where everyone likes to go to because where all the shopping is and stuff like
That's where the crossing is, isn't it?
Where the Shibuya crossing is, you get 3 million people go through there every day. So that must be a pain in the backside.
Wow.
So that thing about, the amount of people that are there,
huge.
How do they deal with all of that? Because people where they live, and
Well, that's what I mean.
how they work, and
maybe strong social norms is what stops them from just breaking each other's necks.
Well, they have this thing called respect, don't they?
Mm.
Yeah.
So I used to know a lad who married a Japanese girl, and he moved to Japan. I haven't spoken to James for many, many years. But when he went over there, as you quite rightly say, the houses they live in are very condensed.
Mm.
The walls are not particularly thick. In fact, I watched a program about courting couples. They go to a hotel and rent it for an hour.
Love hotels, yeah.
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 All
hotels too.
all over the place. Yeah, they're lovely hotels.
Yeah.
Loved. But yeah, and he was saying that's what he got because they weren't married at the time when he went back to Japan.
Okay.
So it's quite interesting.
So culturally, they weren't meant to be.
Well, no, they're very respectful of the parents.
Yeah.
So living and housing must be quite strange then for how they live in, because I mean, if you're that close proximity to a lot of people, mentally that must be difficult.
Well, there is also the practice of isolation. So there's a wave of Japanese people. I don't know whether it's this generation or previous generation as well, but they practice this thing where they choose to live in isolation. So they don't move out of their parents' house. They
don't move out.
They don't. They stay, but they keep themselves in their room.
Yeah.
They tend not to get a job. And I remember.
So the parents bring them up from child.
Yeah, I was watching a TV show while I was over there about this guy who was like. He was like a 75-year-old dad, and he was just like, my son's 50 or whatever, and he's still not moved out. But it's a thing, and they cater to it as well. You can go to ramen shops where you sit in a booth and it's completely boarded up like that, and you don't even have facial contact with the person who serves you. You punch in what you order on a vending machine. You go and sit down, and they just bring you ramen. You eat it on your own and then leave. So
wow,
yeah. So
it is
weird.
It's the most. James May did a documentary of travelling across Japan, and in the opening episode, he says something that I think is absolutely true. It is the most abroad that you can go as a British person.
I think places like Vietnam and stuff like that might be a bit more hectic and chaotic, but they tend to they're quite happy for tourists to come.
Yeah, whereas the Japanese, because they've got that insular idea, and because they've got such a rigid, regimented idea of their culture, full stop. I just think it is. I don't know. Like, obviously, you like it. I've always said to people when they've asked me how Japan is, I've always said, I think you will either love it or you will hate it. I don't know if there is much of an in between.
When we went last year, we did meet two British couples who were with a tour group, and they'd been given, like, when you get free time, you're allowed to go off from the tour group for a bit, and we actually went into a pub because I really wanted a Guinness. I hadn't had a Guinness in nearly 2 weeks, and I wanted to see if it was as good, right? Because that's halfway around the world, right? Yeah. And by the way, the Japanese perfect everything. Okay, so the best pizza I've had is probably in Japan.
Not a butter chicken one, I hope. So.
No. I had a really, really good pizza in Japan, and I can't. It was incredible. I'll show you some pictures later. But they're all about perfectionism, and the Guinness was great.
That's it.
Yeah, not the best I've ever had, but it was really, really good.
It reminds me, I've got to try that one in London that they say is the best now.
Yeah, London have got a few places.
Or Devonshire, it's called the Devonshire.
And there's
Soho.
There's another one south that's supposed to be really good.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, we went in there and we were talking to this English couple, and I said to them, "What are you doing in this English pub in the middle of Tokyo?" And the husband just went, "Oh, I needed English food."
It's funny because a few years ago there was 2 trips that were going out. One was to the US and one was to Japan. And my boss said, "Which one do you want to go to?" Bear in mind, I've never been to Japan. Okay, you go to Japan, then I'll go to the US. And the biggest problem they had with that party going out to Japan was breakfast.
Yeah.
But they didn't have any.
Well, they had it, but it's what they serve for breakfast.
Yeah.
Rice.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, they don't.
We have Rice Christmas.
And shops don't tend to open up till about 11 o'clock anyway. So
Is that right?
yeah. So most people get their breakfast from 7-Eleven, the American convenience stores that they've set up there.
They're everywhere.
They're
in Japan.
everywhere. Yeah.
Everywhere.
So if they don't get the breakfast till 11, when do they start work?
I presume that the culture is you get it at home, or you go to these 7-Eleven shops that do like egg sandwiches or like some warm food or something like that.
I think I watched that program because he bought the food they have is the weirdest food. You know, like what's that really hot
wasabi.
I love
crisps
wasabi.
and all that type of stuff. They get it all from vending machines.
You shouldn't love that, though, would you?
I wouldn't like wasabi.
You would not like wasabi now.
So
I don't mind.
not everything's hunky dory, though, is it? I mean,
I don't think so.
You talk about work ethic. What about that? And what about drinking?
Well, I know that they work ridiculous hours. So from like 8 till 9 or something like that. And then they tend to go. So then everything's catered towards that a little bit as well. So you got loads of late night open restaurants and stuff. And you tend to just see people in suits there because they probably go to work, do that, eat and drink, and then go home.
But their food's very light, isn't it? It's not westernised, starchy, bready.
No, you're right.
It's a light food, so you probably couldn't get away with eating late.
Yeah.
Whereas the Western food is very saturated.
Yeah.
So I can understand that,
Yeah.
and that would work for me personally.
Mm.
But yeah,
Well, I don't know much about the drinking aspect of it. I know that they like to drink, but I don't know what the South Korea is supposed to be worse. They're worse drinkers, but they've had
Japan's supposed to have some of the best whiskey.
Yeah.
I think, the big
because they're
ones.
perfectionists.
Yeah.
There was a place there that does really strange beers as well. We didn't get a chance to go there, but the guy has these beers and the way he pours them is really strange. Although big heads, which is not what we.
So he's getting loads of
like.
aeration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they look really good. But yeah, I don't know if it's an issue or whatever. But
Well, when my brother went very early on, he went to Japan in, I would say, the late 80s, and he stayed there for about, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks.
Wow.
And
Was that with work?
with work, yeah. He was working for Nissan, and he was, drinking culture was massive, and all the blokes after work, they had hundreds and hundreds of these kind of one-room bars. They just arrive.
Are they short, or they beer, or what are they? Or are they
There's
anything?
no need for that.
They are short.
yeah, they like
Generally.
their beers, and they drink whiskey highball. A lot of whiskey highballs.
It's lager
Which
and
is whiskey and lemonade. They do it with.
yeah. It's lager and whiskey, isn't it? That's
Lager and whiskey.
But the one thing that he did notice a lot, that it was all men, and so there was this kind of difference between.
I would say that's probably changed now.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So I mean, if that was it, then is that changed?
Well, I know that.
Sorry, would you mean men not go out to the pubs and there's no women in the pub?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's 10 years this year that since I was there, and I would say that there was definitely plenty of women out and drinking. And at the time, and I don't know if it's true now, and I can't even technically confirm if it was true then, but apparently in 2015, Japan was the only country in the world in which the smoking rates amongst women was increasing rather than decreasing.
Smoking rate.
And amongst, so it's the
I
only
think Asia in total, in general, are big smokers. Aren't
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
they? Big smokers.
but you don't smoke on the street, do you, in Japan?
Well, you said people didn't drink on the street, or they didn't say there was
Well,
something.
no, the other social norm is you can't eat while walking. You're not supposed to eat out in the open and eat while you're walking. You're supposed to go into a place, eat, and come out.
Okay,
But maybe that's about the smell.
So you couldn't go into a park and sit down on a bench and grab a sandwich.
You could sit down on. I think you could probably go into a park and sit on a bench, but I don't know, you couldn't grab a bag of crisps and eat them while you're on your way somewhere.
Wow.
Or like have a sandwich like while you're walking down the street there.
Is that because of
Or
the litter?
sit on the tube and eat on the
Is
tube.
that because of the litter thing, do you think? Or
maybe the smell thing, trying to keep all smells.
I'd say maybe it's probably more just a general cultural thing. It's that regimented meal.
Yeah.
Food is a sat down thing.
it is well known that Japan's a very pressurized country to live in.
Mm.
You know, from a work perspective,
Yeah.
you know, pride is everything.
Yeah.
And if you bring dishonor to your family, you know, the suicide
rate is huge.
is quite large over there because of what it's doing culturally.
Did you get a feel for any of that kind of stuff? Really?
One comedian said everyone in Asia hates the Japanese because they went and killed everyone, and they also kill themselves as well, so they hate themselves as well. That's why they're the most hated.
Yeah.
I think probably loneliness is a big thing there. There was a documentary on Netflix a long time ago about technology in Japan, and there was this one game that had become really, really popular. So it was for a handheld console. I can't remember if it was for like the Switch or something like that. But it was a virtual girlfriend.
I've seen Louis Theroux do a program on it.
Yeah.
He bought these dolls.
Yeah.
And this guy had about 6 or 7 dolls.
Yeah. But
life size
This
dolls.
was a game. This was a game where you have a girlfriend on this thing and it talks back to you.
Yeah.
Kind of
This is what this guy had.
And that was it.
This has taken a bit of a turn.
They've got a decreasing population.
Can I just get the link for that? I feel that for me, it's probably a safer option.
Yeah, and there would be life size as well.
Agree.
Yeah, life size.
Height wouldn't be a
so
problem.
height is fine.
Yeah.
Just generally less trouble.
Yeah.
I think maybe that'll
Probably
probably
not cost as much either.
probably cheaper.
Yeah.
Well, it depends how many updates they need.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And
Well,
you
I
can
mean,
obviously,
Okay,
back.
yeah.
So did you like Japan overall? Now, because I want you to compare it with Korea now and see what.
No, I did like Japan. I think it was really cool.
I'd compare it to here.
Yeah.
You know, transport-wise,
Oh,
you know, my boss went on the bullet train.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And he said it was amazing. You stand in a queue, you get given a number, correct me if I'm wrong, get given a number, you stand in the line, there's no pushing in.
No.
The train comes in and it stops right opposite.
Yeah.
And it arrives at the time it says.
It doesn't arrive early. It doesn't arrive late.
No.
It arrives-
Oh, but
Dead on the time.
there was something in the news a few years ago where a bullet train had left a platform. I think it was 11 seconds early.
Yeah.
And like
People.
the
big
shame.
investigation.
The company came out like they were so embarrassed by the fact that this could possibly have happened, that it's left the
things
platform.
obviously are an obsession for them. It's something that they
it's about
really
being
work
efficient, isn't it? It's about
hard
being
to do. Yeah.
efficiency, being the best.
And the other thing that's interesting is that, okay, people might not like their job or be that into it, but everyone just seems to do their job properly as well.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like maybe that's the thing of our generation. I've noticed it maybe that we probably don't, whether it's because we don't pay enough or whether there's something else involved in it, but I just don't think people do their jobs properly here.
It's funny. When I pulled up, they were just covering this about the problem with technology nowadays is the escapism from work.
Yeah.
You know, when me and your dad started working, we didn't have mobile phones. We didn't have computers. And in fact, I was speaking to a guy this
Abacus.
week, who went away, and it's his first holiday. Even though he took his work's phone with him, he never took his laptop. And I said to him, what are you doing taking X, Y, and Z? That's work time. This is family time. And it's just, you know, culturally we're changing, and I don't think for the better.
So what you're saying is we're taking personal into work and we're taking work into personal.
Well, it's merging into one.
Yeah, it's merging into one whole.
And with Japan, you look at it, the long hours, the pressures of doing a job well, is both good and bad.
But I was going to say the downside is their population's dropping by half each generation.
The birth rate.
Yeah, birth rate's going down, which is
what's happening here.
Not to that extent.
by about they say globally a third the population's dropping each generation, but South Korea, Japan, it's bad. Yeah,
And is that because perhaps of the isolation thing?
Well, I mean,
I mean, try as you might, you're not going to get an AI girlfriend pregnant.
Well, if you live in somewhere that's so overly crowded, the last thing you want at the end of the day is more human interaction, right?
Yeah.
So possibly, I mean, who knows? There could be other reasons for it. I mean, if the world is population is growing, maybe decreasing, maybe they're just ahead of the curve for whatever reason. But that seems to be the thing. So you've got that. Their economy faltered a little bit recently, although arguably not as bad as here. But they had to change the inflation, the interest rate.
Yeah. Well, it was
at 0%, and
their car industry is in free fall. So Nissan is on the verge of going bump. Honda is supposed to be merging with somebody else, and then you look at China. China's exploding because of their battery technology.
Yeah.
So,
I suppose what's happening in Japan is probably going to happen at this end of the world as well. For that reason. Yeah. What about on trains? Do they talk to each other?
Quietly. Yeah. Not supposed to make too much noise.
But they do talk. They do talk.
Yeah, and funnily enough, if you're taking a long train somewhere, eating on that train is perfectly acceptable. And they've got things that there was this thing, I didn't try it, but you could buy these at the train station. You could buy this food, it comes in a box, and you pull this thing and it heats your food up for you.
How cool is that?
And that is acceptable, and you could eat on the train, and that was fine, but not on like the tube, not out in the open, that kind of thing. So, but maybe it's because it is a long journey, and it's almost like they accept that. But trains are lovely. You get loads of leg space. You get a nice little thing rest that comes down to put your food on.
So how big is Japan to the UK?
Well, roughly the same size, isn't it? Ish. I think it's roughly the same size.
Population-wise as well, because that's a factor, isn't it?
I would say
we're at nearly 70 million.
I would say so.
I can find out.
So where did you go?
We did, when we went last year, we stayed in Tokyo. We went sort of north to a place called Kanazawa, which is known as like an old samurai city. I thought it was going to be a town or something like that, but you get there and it's just a big city, big Japanese city. Yeah. Then we went to Kyoto, and we went to Osaka, and then we came back to Tokyo. So we didn't. I think if you went sort of Hiroshima way, that might be a bit.
It's not.
Should probably change.
Yeah, and it's not.
And you can go down to Okinawa, which is probably different as well.
Yeah, I mean, Hiroshima's not anywhere near as crowded as Tokyo. Nowhere near. So they're not constantly, on top of each other there. But it's still a big city. A Kyoto, it's a bit different, isn't it? Because it's more touristy, Kyoto.
Population, 123 million.
So it's nearly twice as much as...
Well, we're at about 80-something now, aren't we?
70.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big difference.
Big difference, yeah. For a country roughly the same size.
Is it, though?
I don't know. I think it is.
It's not land... What do they call it? We are an island. Japan's not an island, is it?
Yes.
It is. So
it's four...
It's slightly bigger.
4 islands?
Yeah, there's more than one anyway.
Yeah, you've got the main island, and then you've got...
We're only one.
Yeah. Yes, well, we're not.
Well, we've got 2.
Isle of Man, Isle of Wight, Orkney, Shetland, Sicily.
Sicily.
Sicily? Not Sicily. Sicily.
Italy might have a problem with that one if you call it Sicily.
That's why I'm part Italian. I was born in...
Oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
All right, you old fellas.
Yeah.
So, Kieran, what about Korea? How did you like it better, worse?
I preferred it, but I think because it was a bit more rough and ready.
Oh,
so it was a bit, reminded you a bit more of home in that respect. Just like being a little bit more.
It's not rough and ready here.
Yeah, but they still have strong social norms. Yeah, but not as so. It's still as safe as being in.
I mean,
bar the threat of North
so you can
Korea.
walk down the street eating a sandwich in South Korea.
Yeah, you could do all that kind of stuff. And you could, but you could still do things like, if you left your phone out, no one would touch it. You just go back and grab it and all that kind of thing. Which is handy when you've had to lug all your suitcases around. You have to stop somewhere. You literally can leave it while you're sorting something out or popping into a shop and come out and it'll still be there. But yeah, I think I like the people better. I think they're a bit more openly friendly, so they're more likely to approach you. Definitely a poorer country. I don't think as much anymore, but I think the poor and rich divide is quite big. There is a whole thing of like, there is a really rich part of society that is really rich, and then you've got people who are still quite poor. There was something to do with people's pensions not being good enough when they leave, or they older people would get fired quite easily from their jobs. So there's a lot of old people still working right up into their old age, and they either open a fried chicken shop, a cafe. So there were streets where it would be chicken shop, cafe. Then we all become taxi drivers, so all the taxi drivers are old. Or there'd be government schemes that would find like work for them to give them.
Is that because they need I know they need to work, but do they need the labour as well? They need workers.
Well, their population decreases even worse than Japan, so possibly. Yeah. But well, I don't understand why opening cafes and chicken shops would solve that. Yeah. And that in Busan, so in Seoul, the capital, that wasn't as obvious, but in Busan, completely obvious. Like there was hardly any young people around. Well, not hardly any young people, but it was noticeable that there wasn't as many young people around.
Because they've left and gone to other parts of the world, I guess.
Well, that they're just not there because of the population. Yeah. So
that's quite interesting.
So Busan as well was a lot more like what I think other Asian countries would be like in terms of like being a bit more rough and ready, a bit more chaotic and all that kind of stuff. Whereas Seoul was quite forward thinking and stuff. But the tour guide we had in Busan, he talked a lot about, he was happy to answer us any questions about Seoul, about Korea. Because sometimes with politics, you don't know what you can say, right? Because you don't want to get too...
So what is South Korea? Is it republic? Is it communist? What is it?
Democracy. Yeah, it's a democracy.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a democracy, and then North Korea is the communist state. Yeah. Although they call themselves the Democratic Republic of Korea, don't they? I think that's right.
Yeah. DMC, is it?
DRK. Yeah. You're thinking DMZ, demilitarized zone.
I'll talk about this in a minute. Yeah. So yeah, but Busan was really nice. Big fishing industry.
Cheese.
Hey, cheese as well.
Busan, it's cheese, isn't it?
That's French. It's soft cheese. I do apologise.
Maybe it is from Busan.
I do apologise, listener.
That's OU, not A.
Well, I mean, I just thought I'd throw it out there. I've just been, as soon as you said Busan, I've just been waiting to get a cheese joke in the whole time.
Okay.
It was a bit cheesy. I know what it is.
Oh, you know what? Well, obviously you don't.
No, it was a joke.
Well, it's a very bad joke. Let's keep on
Sorry,
track, please.
It was cheesy, wasn't it?
It was very
cheesy.
cheesy.
So yeah,
everyone's a joker.
They like their seafood there. It was really, really nice to try some of the seafood. And they're
what was the Wrigley stuff that you were showing on
live or octopus? They cut the legs off while it's alive. I think they kill it, but they cut the legs off.
You think they kill it?
Well, I don't see what happened to the rest of it, but they still move for about 2 hours after they're dead, and then that's a delicacy there.
I've got to say that's one thing that I think is totally barbaric.
Mm-hmm.
Totally barbaric. And they say it enhances the flavour and all that.
It doesn't.
Well, and just to go back to Japan, obviously I love Japan, but I'm not a big fan of... Are you waving at me then?
Yeah, you were going back to Japan.
That's worse than the cheese joke.
Well, the fact is that nobody can actually see what he was doing.
That's true.
It's worse, yeah. You have to describe it. You have to
At least what you described.
And you had to point it out.
Yeah.
But obviously Ash was doing that without anybody being
Yeah. So there we go.
Yeah.
So referring to Japan and food, the shark fin soup stuff that they describe as a delicacy, but it doesn't taste like anything. So they have to add like chicken stock and stuff like that to make it taste like something. It's like you're killing all of these sharks for no reason whatsoever.
Oh, it's aphrodisiac, isn't it?
I believe, allegedly, if you believe in that sort of thing. I mean, personally...
Do you need that for AI girlfriends?
Some of us don't need it, full stop, mate.
Somebody needs a blue tablet.
Somebody needs a blue tablet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't look at me. What are you looking at me for?
I'm not. I'm just scanning the room.
I'm good.
You can calm down. Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
CBD.
I've forgotten where we're.
We were talking about the wiggly squid.
Oh yeah, the wiggly squid.
All right.
Yeah, but what's foie gras?
Yeah, I don't think like that either. I think that's barbaric.
There you go. So
You know, I mean, when I looked after Sanyo,
Who's he?
he's a big guy,
Italian guy.
Sanyo. But he was telling me when the FD, when he went over to Japan, they had this thing called quivering fish. And they... No, but what they thought, they went to a fish restaurant where they had the fish tank in, and you pick the fish you want.
Mm.
And then 20 minutes later, they come to the table with that fish, with a wet towel over it, and they carve it.
Yeah. So in they have the practice has been banned in Japan because they used to. I don't know whether I should talk about it, but we can
edit it out.
They did this thing where you can eat the fish while it's still alive.
Yeah, that's what they did.
They pin it down in front of you and they cut just the top half of it.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, what?
It's been banned.
Yeah, this is what it's called. It's called quivering fish.
Yeah.
The fish is still alive.
So the fish is alive on a plate.
Yeah.
Not in water, obviously, so it's going to die.
They put a wet, like a tea towel over it
to keep it alive long enough.
Keep it wet and moist and stuff. And then as it comes, the gills are still working, the mouth's still, and then they get the sharpest knife you can imagine, and they just shave.
It's a bit like Hannibal Lecter when he does the thing on his...
And then you actually get down to the level where you can just see the heart.
Oh, I don't know about all of that, but
this guy was saying
it's banned now though.
Big, but they pay a lot of money.
Yeah, they probably.
You know, the chairmen, the CFOs, the FDs of the Japanese companies. They go to these restaurants, and they're a bit like celebrities. These, the Sanyo family, the Nissan family, all that. Everybody knows them. They're all very powerful people. And that's what they do. They have this because they can.
That's probably the point, isn't it? It's probably because they can.
That's right.
Because a lot of stuff like that, like you said about foie gras and, all of those things, it's not about whether it tastes like anything. You can go to Dubai now, can't you, and buy pizza that's got grated gold on it. And it's just for the sake of it.
Well, I know we're talking about... Yeah, well, that's the bit I was going to come on to. That I know we're talking about South Korea and Japan, but what is Dubai chocolate?
$9.99.
I've seen the price of it.
$9.99 the other day.
I nearly bought you some today.
But what is it?
It's kunafa.
But what is it?
Kunafa.
Kunafa.
It's like
Kunafa
pastry.
Yeah.
It's like pastry.
Is it like pastry, pistachio, chocolate?
Yeah.
Combination.
Yeah.
Basically.
Kunafa, not kunafa. No, it is. One of them's cheese and one of them's...
I've seen one a lot green in the middle of it. Is that pistachio?
That's pistachio, yeah.
Right, okay.
I've not tried it because there's no way.
I refuse to pay.
I'm paying 10...
I nearly got you some today.
I refuse. £3.
Deli.
Well, why didn't you get it? My only...
Yeah, they're only $2.99, so I was...
No.
Oh, yeah, it's probably not the right stuff, is it?
Tesco's are selling it now. Marks and Spencer's
10 quid. 10 quid for something the size of a packet of fags.
Looks like a Willy Wonka bar.
It's not even that big, is it?
I don't know. The one I saw was like a Willy Wonka bar.
The ones I've seen are like literally the size of...
That's about the size of a Dairy Milk.
Oh, yeah. And how big's a Dairy Milk?
About the size of a Willy Wonka bar.
Anyway, we've descended.
Anywho.
Normally.
I like the Dubai chocolate. Well, I haven't had the one that they make, the one that went viral. The one in Dubai.
The original.
Yeah. Because you have to go to Dubai for that, or you might be able to order it.
Yeah, I think
it sells out all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's quite tasty.
Well, I will next time. I will get you some. Okay.
Not from the Polish shop.
Why not?
I'll get.
No,
some
you want proper stuff.
Well, it says it's Dubai.
No, if you're going to make a judgment.
Lint do a version.
Yeah, Tesco's have got them in.
Have they?
Yeah, Tesco's, Marks and
You
Spencer's.
trust Tesco's.
Oh no, I trust Marks and Spencer's or Waitrose. Waitrose would definitely do it
over the Polish deli.
Polish deli, I wouldn't trust as far as I could throw it, but being
that's controversial.
Let's put it out there.
That's controversial.
Put it out there.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, let's move on. Kieran, so tell us about what the South Koreans' attitude is towards the North Koreans.
So it's a complicated history.
What? Sorry, something.
Well, I'm just thinking before you answer that question, that's like asking North and South of Ireland, surely.
Probably worse.
Yeah, but I'm saying you wouldn't go to Southern Ireland, and walk in there and sing "God Save the Queen."
Well, who's doing that?
No, but I'm saying that such a massive anti-North and South. It's the same as you just wouldn't do it.
Well, maybe.
However,
maybe
you can travel freely between the two
What?
What,
in Ireland.
Yes, you can.
Sorry, I was going to say.
Yes, you
But
can.
in North and South Korea, there is a area called DMZ, which has over 2 million mines spread across it to prevent you
which comes on to the program your dad asked me to go and watch.
Yeah.
Which showed all that in its true
the one
horror.
we watched together,
Yeah, horrific.
Yeah. So it's the Storyville.
It's a documentary on Storyville.
Storyville, yeah.
And it's about people trying to escape North Korea.
Well, they actually film themselves, don't they?
Yeah.
It's not a documentary as such. It's people's experience of trying to escape.
Yeah.
And what the brutality is if you do escape and you get caught.
And you're not really escaping by leaving North Korea. Because by leaving North Korea, you're entering various territories,
China,
various
Laos,
countries.
Vietnam,
they're all supportive.
All sympathetic.
Yeah.
The only way is to get to Thailand, where they then get you to South Korea. And then when you get to South Korea, the tour guide, when we went to the demilitarized zone, so we got close, we're very close to North Korea. When we went there, the woman was not, she was a lovely woman, but her attitude towards North Koreans wasn't very pleasant. And as you can imagine, it's like any other immigrant.
Is that because she's still got...
They're lazy, they don't work, all this kind of stuff. But I don't know. It's when you watch that documentary and you see that grandma who's lived all her life in North Korea. I mean, you're going from one extreme to another. You're going from a country that's extremely authoritarian to a country that is like totally capitalist, and it must just blow your mind.
But what was strange about her as an individual was her support of the dictator in North Korea,
because they don't know any difference.
Because they're brainwashed.
And that was the thing that came out of the program quite heavily, really. The idea that people who live in North Korea, have no idea of what happens outside in the world.
Well, what was it? One TV channel, was it? One radio station, one newspaper?
All state-run as well, isn't it?
But they're so, as you say, brainwashed to think that the world out there is awful, and that you're in the best place that you can be here.
Yeah.
And so they're completely isolated in that way.
And they have to go to re-education centres when they make it from north to south.
Yeah.
But apparently they're not very effective. Like they have to do it for like a week to 10 days. They have to pass like a basic assessment and then...
So sorry, hold on. So you've left North Korea, you've somehow made it into South Korea, and then the South Koreans are making you do a
re-education
program. So it's the South Koreans.
Yeah.
And what does a re-education program?
I don't know the details of it, but if you can imagine, you're someone who has lived in North Korea your whole life, you probably need need to like a reset, like to learn.
So it's like you've gone to a different planet, isn't it? To a degree, because
Well, in North Korea they don't have a word for just Americans.
Yeah,
the word is bastard American, and they
American bastard,
and they say it.
So every because they don't call Americans, they just call them American bastards. so it translates.
Which I don't mind actually. I think
they sing songs.
So when they do things like maths questions, and they'll say something like,
two American bastards.
if there were 5 American bastards, 2 American bastards didn't get whatever, how many American bastards would
I do apologise for the swearing during this part of this podcast.
It was a descriptive term. I'm not swearing.
We're just quoting the North Koreans. We're not condoning.
But so those people who leave North Korea and come into South Korea or whatever, are quite shocked by what they see.
Yeah.
Because it's nothing like what's been described to them before. And clearly it's been described to them before just so that they can keep them down. And
so that's an interesting point, isn't it?
Is it?
Well, because if North Korea have got sufficient enough control over their population and make them believe that they are in the best possible place, and the North Koreans don't have an alternative view, why would they leave?
Well, because I think no matter how controlled you can make it, people's actual material lives aren't very good. I mean, they were talking about that family they could only get water from a well. They were amazed that there was just water everywhere when they got to South Korea, because if they wanted a drink, they'd have to go to a well. So
I think it was the shower, wasn't it? They were washing their hair.
Yeah. And also
not using the same water.
And also that family, I think they were there was a worry that they were going to get arrested as well, because they'd supposed something, I can't remember what the details of it were, but they were worried for their own safety because someone had reported them, or someone they knew had escaped, who had tried to escape. So they were worried they were going to, so it might have been a thing as we love our country, but we know what happens to people who try and leave.
Yeah.
So this has happened to one of our family members. They come for the whole family. So we've got to go. There's a documentarian called Adam Curtis, and he did a documentary called Hypernormalization, which was based in the Soviet Union. And he talked about the psychology of knowing that your country's going to shit and everything's a lie, but you go along with it anyway because there's no
alternative.
Yeah. And he said that's what happened a lot of the time in the Soviet Union. They had massive famines, and with the collectivization, a lot of the farmers and the peasants lost their land and stuff, but you still kind of, you just went along with it because there was no alternative to think about. So you showed up when they did the celebrations. You put your faith in someone like Stalin, who blamed everyone else for what was going on.
Well, they showed that on that program because they showed you the people starving and people dying in the streets and people walking past them because they didn't have enough food.
Yeah.
But they didn't hold that against the dictator.
Yeah.
No.
It's part and parcel of their existence.
Yeah.
So they're never going to speak out for risk of reprisals or whatever. That's it.
Well, you're not going to speak out because you might get shot by an anti-aircraft.
Well, the problem is they haven't even got that in their psyche.
But the thing is that although they are isolated in the way they are, people have left North Korea and gone to the south. They do have some forms of telecommunication. I mean, they have phones and things that they can communicate with their relatives outside. So they kind of know.
As long as they're not caught.
Yeah, but they get to at least know that, things aren't great here.
Yeah. What I would say, though, is that this isn't necessarily what North Korea was always like. And at one point in their history, when they split after the 1953 war, their economy was faster growing than South Korea's at that point. So they were on a better trajectory. They had better living standards at that point.
Right.
And they attribute this the way it is now. I mean, they probably still had a secret service who kidnap people and all that
authoritarian
kind of
as well.
Yeah, it's still going to be authoritarian, but it wasn't as bad as it was now. But they reckon the reason it got so bad is because I think the original leader of North Korea, what was the original one? Kim Il-sung was the original one, I think. He became increasingly worried that the Soviet Union was just using them as like a dummy state, he wanted him as like a dummy leader or whatever. So he decided that he was going to isolate himself even further because he didn't want more influence from China, more influence from Soviet. He's probably a bit paranoid and things like that. So it was at that point that they started becoming more isolationist, and then that's when things started getting really
Just think
bad.
about the mental torture of that. I mean, I said to Ash I sent her a text, or I said, "Oh, thanks for that program. It was horrific."
Yeah.
It was really bad. He goes, we watched about 15 minutes in, and Dad was like, I don't think we should be watching.
This is appropriate.
Watch the whole flipping thing because you couldn't take your eyes off it.
Yeah, but you look at it and you think how it was interesting. There was something I was watching about the mental pressures of living through COVID, right, in Western society.
Yeah.
That's similar to what you'd live in a communist environment.
Yeah.
House arrest, curfews, no power, all those type of things.
No gatherings.
You can't do it mentally. You're just like, over time you start to erode normality.
And it becomes acceptable, doesn't it?
Well, you
eventually.
You just adopt to it, don't you? You
Yeah,
assimilate
that's
it.
life.
And move on from it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You can travel to North Korea now, though. You can get visas. You have to fly to either Russia or China, and then
the question I'd ask, why?
They do kind of organised and controlled trips into North.
Yeah. But
why would you?
What is the purpose of going to see that?
I mean, if someone gave me the opportunity to go see what it was like, I think it'd be fascinating.
Yeah,
well, it's the same.
I wouldn't want to contribute. I wouldn't want to be paying to contribute towards a regime.
I'm in agreement with you, and I've looked, over the years. North Korea's not at going, but I've looked over the years at what's happened in North Korea and trying to get because it's a unique country, isn't it? In that sense of like such.
Probably the only country that's like. Well, there are some satellite states under Russia, like Turkmenistan and stuff, which is similar.
Yeah, but this one's quite.
You get no signal when you.
Well, China's like that. A friend of mine's just in China, and he had to get all these different apps and stuff on his phone.
Oh yeah, but it's
because you can't operate Western apps.
No, you can't.
but they're completely open to the world though right now.
Yeah, you can go in and out.
North Korea.
Oh yes,
is probably unique in the sense that they just don't want any
Westerns
influence yet.
Yeah, which makes it which is what I was just about to say. Then I am fascinated. Even if I was brave enough to go to North Korea, which I'm not, but even if I was brave enough to go, I don't think I would want to on the basis that what you would see probably wouldn't be
what it is like.
What it really is like. It's going to be an
Yeah.
orchestrated version. So you're going to go to this place and all you're going to see is what you see the version that they publicise on the TV anyway. You're not going to see the reality of the country because you're not going to be allowed
There is
to.
a YouTube channel of a guy who films inside North Korea. It's definitely worth watching.
Well, watching all the oxes pulling everything over the fields. They've got no mechanical machinery.
I don't know. It's not necessarily all that. He films in the streets and stuff. I think he's mainly in Pyongyang, the main city. But yeah, it's funny. But then they also have places where you can get Western goods, but you have to be a certain level in the
hierarchy.
Yeah, to go in. You can go and get fast food, or you can pop into the shop and get branded razor or whatever.
Well, you talk about a little bit about the DMZ, because you mentioned that it's covered in mines or something, and what was the music thing
So mines were put there by the Americans because they couldn't think of another way to stop North Korea from invading. So North Korea, backed by the Soviet Union, took nearly all of Korea before the Americans decided to get involved properly, and they were backed by the UN, and they provided aid to the South Koreans, pushed them back, but they've not actually. There's no peace agreement. There's no treaty.
They are still technically at war, aren't they?
They're still at war, but they just laid these mines across the demilitarized zone. That zone's controlled by the UN. It's neither South Korea or North Korea. It's controlled by the UN. I can't remember what the distance was, but the demilitarized zone starts before the mines because we went to it. So you can drive in, the military come on and check your passports and make sure that you're on the list of the people who are booked on the tour. You can only go by tour, you can't go by yourself. I had North Korean money, I should have bought that. As well.
Well, they watched it.
Yeah, bought North Korean money while we were there as well.
Which has got no value in the West at all. You couldn't go to the bank and convert that into, because they wouldn't take it.
No, but you can show it during a podcast.
But they've got
show it during a podcast.
But they've got the North Korean leaders on there. Imagine if the regime collapsed, then you've got those dollars.
They're going to be worth a fortune, aren't they?
Future, you never know.
Bitcoin.
Yeah. So you go to the demilitarized zone. It's UN controlled. There are villages there. There's 2 villages there on the South Korean side, and they're not considered sort of South Korean really. They're because they're in this demilitarized zone. They're not allowed to. They can leave, but they're not allowed to move out of the demilitarized zone. They have to live there until they're at least 40, and if they then want to leave, they have to apply for special reasons to leave. They have a 7 p.m. curfew, so they can go into South Korea, but they've got to be back by 7 p.m.
Wow.
I think it's just the fact that they're part of that. They're part of that demilitarized zone.
What was the music thing? The music?
Oh, the South Korea play music into North Korea constantly on these big speakers the whole time, just to piss off the North Korean leaders. So it's like South Korean songs about love and like all this stuff that they wouldn't be used to hearing. And you can see it, so you can go. They take you to an observatory. You can see into North Korea. Not allowed to take pictures because they've got snipers trained on the observatory. And you can see the demilitarized zone, which is like a wildlife haven now because there's been no human interaction on there for years. And this is where I bought the demilitarized zone whiskey, which is, well, the woman, I don't know what.
See, to me, that doesn't look like whiskey.
Yeah, but I don't know what the tour guide on the bus kept saying, oh, you'll get to buy some North Korean whiskey. And I thought that would be incredible if we could buy some North Korean whiskey. But what I think she meant is whatever this is, which is like whiskey from the demilitarized zone made probably made similar to how they would make it in the north using like traditional methods or whatever.
So that's,
But you can't get it anywhere. I've looked online. You can't buy it.
so you're probably better off not opening that. Keep it.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And also, can you really trust what you're drinking?
I think it'd be all right. It's UN sanctioned, so so it must be okay.
Yeah.
Or do we take some good old Scottish whiskey? That's the look at the difference.
Is that the same bottle from
Look at his face light up as he's saying that.
Scottish whiskey?
It smells like Pedro Jimenez.
Your dad likes that.
Yeah. But a point I was going to make was that can you think of a British song that you would play across the border into North Korea that would really piss them off?
We'll meet again.
Yeah.
Something about
We'll meet again. That's good.
Dane Verilyn.
Well done.
Yeah.
Like that.
Well done. Like
Yeah,
it.
your old wartime
Yeah.
stuff.
Good. I don't think everyone's going to beat that.
Have you got one, Andy?
I was going to say like, "Hey Mickey," just on a constant repeat.
Hey,
I did
Mickey,
make
you're
that
so
point.
fine.
I said if you had to listen to those songs constantly all the time, you'd think I'm not going to South Korea because I'm sick of that.
That's what. Yeah.
Is that what they play?
If you want to go really left of field,
Go on.
Mr. Blobby.
Yeah, that would be irritating, wouldn't it?
That would be really.
Blobby, Mr. Blobby.
That would really.
There is what about the Team America version of "I'm So Lonely" sang by Kim Jong Il? When he
What, you mean throw it back at him?
Yeah.
have you not seen it?
No.
You've not seen Team America? Yeah, it's. I won't sing it because it's a bit offensive, but I'd play that. Go straight back into North Korea. I'm so lonely.
Any final words, Stu?
No, good podcast, different.
Yeah.
Which is what I like. Bit of variety. It was good.
Variety is the spice of life.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Okay, hasta luego.
No.
Oh.
Well, how do you normally wind it up
You've
now?
got to do it. It's your catchphrase.
You introduced it.
It's your catchphrase.
Sponsored by Cushy Go.
What was it?
No.
Oh, he doesn't remember.
Jesus.
Someone else did.
What was my cash?
You said we should do like a Two Ronnies roundup, and you say it.
And on that,
And on that note,
And on that note,
there you go. Oh my God.
goodbye.
No, let's draw this one to a close. Right.
On-
On that note,
On that note,
let's draw this one to a close.
let's draw this one to a close. You know what the problem is? We've just had a shot of bloody whiskey.
oh my God,
Oh my God!
That's what it is.
Oh, he's had more than a shot than
I
I.
can't string two sentences together.
you wet lettuce.
Bloody no.
So here it is. It's the podcast nobody asked for.